Welcome to Dropout 22, a GD Media production. And then there were two. Not a single English panellist wanted to come on and discuss Eddie Jones's squad. Me and Pat will next. That's right, it's only me and Patty Andrews tonight to talk you through England's EPS squad. We've also got Pat's stats, we've got turnover ball, we're looking at Wales in 2016, the Wallabies in 2016, and we've got a great chat about who are the best centres of the professional era. Thank you very much for joining us. This is Dropout 22. Welcome aboard! Welcome to Dropout 22. It's a slimline tonic version this week, just myself and Patty. So Patty, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yes, giving the people what they want.
Exactly.
Two legends. No loud breathing from Guy.
Guy away on tour in New York. Good luck with the proposal, Guy. Fingers crossed for you. Hope it goes well. And Jimbo meant to be joining us from South Africa, but probably either suffering with a bit of jet lag or is absolutely bamboozled, so he might be ringing in later on, and we have to apologise in advance for the state of him there. We kick off with the big news this week. No Englishman wanted to join us on the show to discuss the English squad for the Six Nations, and after I read it to you, it's not really surprising why. So, for the forwards, we got Paul Hill, Dan Cole, Matt Mullen, Joe Marler, Henry Thomas, who's in as a replacement for Kieran Brooks in the EPS squad, Mako Vunipola, Luke Cowan-Dickey, Jamie George, Dylan Hartley, Maro Itoje, George Cruz, Joe Launchbury, Courtney Laws, Josh Beaumont, Jack Clifford, James Haskell, Chris Robshaw, Matt Kovacic, who is in as a replacement for Dave Ewers, and Billy Vunipola. That completes the forwards, and then over to the backs, we got Mike Brown, Alex Good, Chris Ashton, Jack Noel, Anthony Watson, Marland Yard, Elliot Daly, Ollie Devoto, who's in for Manu Tuilagi, Jonathan Joseph, Sam Hill, who's in for Exeter teammate Henry Slade, Owen Farrell and George Ford are the fly halves, and the two scrum halves are Danny Kerr and Ben Youngs. Patty, initial reaction to that squad?
Yeah, I was just looking for a quote from Eddie Jones, just talking about the numbers themselves. I think there's it's a younger squad. There's only two players over 31 or something. Mike Brown and someone else. But I think, look, they needed a change. They needed a mix-up, and they've certainly brought in some controversial people in there, particularly Dylan Hartley. A lot of people are wondering, why someone with such a poor disciplinary record would warrant a test call-up again, but I don't know. I think there's some quality. There's definitely some quality there and some depth.
Well, as you mentioned, the average age is just a shade over 24. So that means that there is some old boys that have been given the axe. Jeff Parlin, one of them. Tom Wood, the other, and Tom Youngs, as you mentioned, in Dylan Hartley's position. He loses his place. I thought he was quite good in the World Cup in a very poor England team. And Ben Morgan loses out as well. That covers the forwards. In the backs, Johnny May's out with a long-term injury after he tried to kick a rugby ball, failed, fell on his knee, and now needs surgery. Idiot. Brad Barrett, shock horror, he's gone. Sam Burgess, obviously, no longer available. And the other casualties many see in that back line are Joe Simpson of Wasps at scrum half and Danny Cipriani as well at Sale. I mean, he spent a bit of time at Melbourne. Are you shocked to see him omitted from the squad?
Definitely. When we looked at the England World Cup squad, they certainly lacked a bit of flair and a bit of attacking creativity, which they've lacked for a while, really. And Cipriani could have been an impact player at the very least in a tournament like the World Cup, so I would have expected Eddie certainly to give him a go. He's not been playing poorly at club level, so he's got class, that's for sure.
I mean, I completely agree with you, and I don't know what Danny Cipriani has to do now to get into that England setup. I mean, let's just have a look at the backs. I mean, who would you... I mean, they've got two and a half fullbacks in Mike Brown, Alex Good and Anthony Watson. They've then got Chris Ashton, Jack Noel and Marlon Yard as well, who will play back three. You've got Elliot Daly, Ollie Devoto, Jonathan Joseph, all arguably gunning for one shirt in the 13 shirt. You've got Sam Hill as well, who's a centre. And then you're down to 2 10s, 2 9s that you're going to need in a matchday squad. I mean, there's not much wiggle room there to find room for him. I mean, who would you like to see him come in instead of?
It's a good question. I mean, you all know my position on Mike Brown. I don't rate him at all. Anyway, he had a bit of some flashes of good play in the World Cup, but he's certainly on the older side. I think you're going to want to make room, particularly for a player like Danny Cipriani. I think you can afford to lose a Mike Brown. That's my opinion at any rate.
Okay. I'd personally, I think the same about Alex Good. I think you can get rid of him. Anthony Watson can cover fullback because I don't see them dropping Mike Brown. And then, as you said, you've got room then for a flair player. I think you just have to be brave with it. You're gonna have to pick who is your best 10. Is it Owen Farrell? Is it George Ford? You pick that, and the other boys. Sorry, you don't make the matchday squad because we want a match changer to come on. You can't, if you're going to go George Ford to start at 10, you can't bring an Owen Farrell on at 60 minutes to change the game. We saw that in the World Cup.
Doesn't work.
Flipping over to your position, you've mentioned it already.
Oh, just on that though as well.
Yeah, go on.
I think you need to look at the great teams. Not saying this is going to be a great England team, but you look at the great some of the great international sides. They've got a core of players, but particularly you've got a 9-10 combination which tends not to change, and the rest of the team is sort of built around that. And the fact that I guess they've not picked a bunch of 10s, two 10s really, 2 out-and-out 10s there. Maybe that's an indication of where he's moving after his World Cup. I probably can't see Owen Farrell starting.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe that's his mindset is to build the back line off of a George Ford.
Maybe.
And he's quite flary in his own right, and that could be the thinking behind not having a Danny Cipriani involved.
Potentially. I mean, we saw it with Wales a couple of years back. Grand Slam year especially. We had James Hook starting at 10 in 2008, and then what they did was they'd bring a Stephen Jones on just to close the game out. So maybe there's that element of it, that you win the game in the first hour and then you bring a pragmatic 10 on to close it out. I mean, it's got its merits, but whether or not it'll work, the proof will be in the pudding. But I think it's fair to say that it's not, it doesn't frighten the life out of me as a Welshman going into a Six Nations. You touched on the hooker's position there.
Yeah, I think it's great. Dylan Hartley, I think, brings a bit of to use a classic Australian term, bit of mongrel. Loves a bit of the hard stuff. I think that's great, bringing in someone like a Dylan Hartley. Obviously, the chat around him being potential for captain, I think, again, is a good idea. Because often, and we've seen it before, not just in rugby, but in all manner of sports, you place some responsibility on the shoulders of a player who maybe struggles a bit with authority and discipline, and it tends to straighten them out. They think more for the greater good of the team and can bring out the best in players. And I certainly see, not saying it will be the case, but I can certainly see that happening with a Dylan Hartley.
I see that argument, but he has been Saints skipper for a little while, and his disciplinary record for Saints is absolutely atrocious. If anything, his international record isn't that bad. I think he's only 1, maybe 2 yellow cards in his 66 caps I think he's got. So his disciplinary record on an international stage, not too bad. When it comes to Saints, where he has been captain, very bad.
But again, I think on that, sorry to cut you off, actually I'm not sorry, is that it shows how much more seriously he obviously takes the England and the international setup as opposed to a club level. And imagine putting even more, I guess, responsibility on his shoulders. I think would only do him good.
And I mean, he has to start, doesn't he? I mean, his competition, now that Tom Youngs has been axed, who has come out today and said that he's gobsmacked by his omission. You've got Luke Cowan-Dickie and Jamie George. Between them have got 4 caps. There's no way you can throw someone in at hooker with that little experience, is there?
I mean, definitely. Any front row position, really, you don't want to have inexperienced players starting. That's pretty simple as that, really. I can certainly see, getting the younger guys a lot of game time. and certainly some minutes after the hour mark. But I can't see anyone else starting with him for sure.
Okay, so the only sad thing is that that Tom Wood really is not in the squad from a Welshman's point of view, because he's made an international career at the moment by just doing nothing on a rugby field. I mean, that looks like the number 6 jersey looks like it's going to be filled by Chris Robshaw.
It has to be, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, they've got to have a change up there, haven't they? I think he's a good player in his own right. He's got all the dog in the world. He just had the wrong number on his back.
Exactly, and therefore the wrong expectations for him. He's not a 7, and he's shown that. And I think it will be interesting to see him play with a bit more freedom if he's not captain. And in a position that's more suited. I think he could thrive.
Exactly. I mean, with that side, you've got Matt Kvesic there, who, although he's only there as a temporary to debuters, he's an out-and-out 7. You've got Clifford at Quins, who's been playing all across the back row this season, and obviously Billy Vunapola's going really well, going great guns at Saracens, but I think even I could play well at number 8 with the way that the Saracens pack's going. So we'll leave the England side for there. We'll see how they go in the Six Nations, and the rest of the Six Nations squad to be announced as well.
I would say, what happened to Launchbury? He's injured, isn't he?
No, we don't know yet. He's on a concussion, so could be 2 weeks, could be 6 weeks. These things need to be sorted out, as we've seen. I mean, concussions in rugby it's a long discussion for another day, but I'm glad to see that they are being treated seriously now, and when he's back, he will be fit, and he will only be back when he is fit. Over to Pat for Paddy's Stats.
Paddy's Stats, everyone's favourite segment.
He brings out the Bible.
Yes, it's the hallowed text. Gareth, I'm going to give you 3 numbers, and you're going to pick one, and I shall read the stat for that corresponding number. So your numbers are 77, 34, and 112.
I'll take 34, please, Patrick.
Today's stat: the only one-armed rugby player to score 13 conversions out of 13. Hold on. The only one-armed rugby player to score 13 conversions out of 13. That implies that there's been more than one one-armed rugby player, and potentially a one-armed rugby player that has scored 12 out of 13.
Just missed that last one from the touchline.
Mr. Wakeham at Newton Abbott vs Plymouth on Saturday, the 30th of January, 1886. It is a record. Firstly, it is a record that has since been surpassed. That's the 13 conversions from 13 attempts. But a player called Wakeham did it towards the end of the 19th century. It was claimed as a record for England, but his effort had an added specialness. He only had one arm. I think that's fantastic.
Top work, one arm man.
To be fair though, you don't kick with your arms.
No, you don't.
If he's kicking conversions, it'd be more impressive if it was the one-legged rugby player.
It depends what arm it is. I mean, if he's a right footer and it's his left arm, that's a hell of a feat. Because we watched Chris Patterson kick, and if everyone just closes your eyes and just pictures Chris Patterson kicking, that big old sweeping one arm, left arm going round. I mean, would it be a nubbin? I mean, is it just a?
Well, you're a conversion kicker. I mean, do you have a special balance for your arm, a motion that you?
Yeah, you need your left arm because your left shoulder points towards the posts, and your left arm comes across your body to keep it all tight and stops your chest from opening up. So
I always thought you just close your eyes and hit it as hard as you could.
That's what Rob Biggs does.
Okay, good.
But not G Davies. More of Pat stats there next week. Bit of harmless fun for you there.
Hey. Be careful, Gareth, just because there's no one else here to pull you up on that.
Okay, we'll move on to Wales in 2016. Patty, you saw plenty of our boys in the Rugby World Cup. Nearly had you. What do you reckon our realistic aspirations should be? What should our goals be? What do you want to see from the Wales team this year?
I want to see them beating England. I want to see them beating France comfortably. I want to see them beating Ireland. I want to see them playing well because it's always a case of stronger international competitions when teams like Wales, like Ireland are playing well. And I think you guys were not unfortunate after the group stages, but certainly you showed your quality by disposing of England. and you showed your quality by really giving us a good run. So I think the Welsh rugby has a weird chip on its shoulder in terms of wanting to prove itself against England, wanting to prove itself constantly and talk about it. And or correct me if I'm wrong, Gareth. But I think you'd be doing best for yourselves if you weren't so focused on we have to be winning, we expect to be winning. I mean, obviously you expect that anyway, but a timeless cliche, but taking it one game at a time. And I think certainly you've got some quality players in that setup.
I think we just need to keep all of those quality players in terms of injuries. I mean, we got absolutely obliterated World Cup time. If we can we haven't got the depth of your Englands, your Frances, your New Zealands. You know, we're similar to the Aussies in a way that, you know, we haven't just got that massive player pool that we can pick from. So when we are a couple of injuries in, a couple of positions down, then we are pretty exposed. If we can stay injury free, I don't see why we don't go into the Six Nations as favourites. Hopefully we can win that. And then it's just, for me, I'd just like to see a little tweak in the way that we play. I cannot fault Warren Gatland since he's come in 2008. He's delivered six Nations championships. He's delivered Grand Slams. Yeah,
2008.
He's been there since 2008. His first championship there, he won the Grand Slam for us. But it's just, Warren Ball does rub people up the wrong way. It rubs me up the wrong way a little bit. I mean, if we were winning every time, if we'd made a World Cup final, then everyone just sort of, fair enough.
Forget about it, yeah.
However, the World Cup is a little bit of an anomaly because he only had a very limited hand to play. But just, I'd like to see us play a little bit more expansively, like we did in 2008, play with a little bit more freedom, and just excite fans a little bit more, as opposed to just relying on pure passion, pure grit.
Was it the 2007 or 2011 World Cup you had a good run?
2011, yeah. We were playing great rugby then when Reece Priestland was in his prime.
Absolutely. You used to throw the ball around quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. If we can get back to that, then absolutely ideal. But then if we play Warren Ball, we win the Grand Slam, then you're going to have absolutely no complaints from me.
And that's what I mean when there's that focus on we have to win these games, we're so expected to win these games. It's the difference between expectation and pressure and a belief. And in a belief. And I think that's what we saw with the Aussies in the World Cup. There wasn't this great weight of expectation on them. It was more just a belief that they were going to win.
Yeah.
And that freed them up to really have a go and throw the ball around, which is what the Welsh used to do. Maybe not believing they were going to win, but believing that certainly were going to throw the ball around. And to make, turning that corner could be spell bad news for the rest of the Six Nation teams.
Hope so, and not just the Six Nations either. I mean, we hark on about it all the time, but it's that Southern Hemisphere hoodoo. I mean, we finally managed to beat the South Africans in the autumn last year. We thought that that's the monkey off the back, and then Australia go and do us again. And we've got a big tour to New Zealand coming up in the summer, I think it is.
That would be fantastic.
Massive.
I mean, a new look Kiwi side as well.
Exactly.
Not entirely new look, but certainly some big names missing, and that should be very interesting.
Right for the picking, and obviously, if looking long term as well. I mean, if Wales can get a win there, I know it's never been done by a Welsh team, and we haven't beaten the All Blacks since the 1950s. So it's a big ask, but if you can get there's no better time to do it with all the retirees. And what it does then is it puts the Welsh boys way above anyone else in terms of selection wise for the 2017 British and Irish Lions tour down in New Zealand again.
Kiwis.
So much to play for the Welsh this year. Hopefully they can go well. It's that time of the show where I hand over the presenting reins to Patrick Andrews for Turnover Ball.
Turnover Ball this week, Gareth. Thank you. We just discussed this briefly, didn't we? I believe we're going to be speaking about tennis, a sport we haven't covered yet here at Dropout 22. The upcoming Australian Open, obviously, an exciting time. The first Grand Slam of the year, of the tennis calendar, as well as the calendar year, and it's also Leighton Hewitt's last Grand Slam, and obviously last Australian Open. Someone who's done it for more than 20 times, which is just phenomenal. But Gareth, what are your thoughts on this the ultimate trio now? I guess Rafa Nadal sort of faded off of late, but Djokovic and Murray and Federer is still very much up there. I mean, Djokovic is looking ominous. He had a phenomenal year last year. I think he had the highest winning percentage of anyone ever, or something stupid. Is he the best? Is he the best ever? What are your thoughts?
I think he's just metronomic, isn't he? I mean, the way that the bloke just churns out win after win after win. I mean, when you watch him play, some of the things he manages to do on a tennis court is just frightening. The way that he can just play passing shots, play cross court, play backhand, forehand. He can play a serve and volley if he needs to. He's got the power game. He's got the finesse, and he just doesn't sweat the bloke.
I mean, when you look at him, he looks like a bunch of scientists got together and just decided what's the perfect. If we're going to make the perfect tennis player, physically, he's not only does he have a phenomenal motor, as you mentioned, but he's tall. He's got long reach. He's wiry. He's strong. I mean, it's got to be almost an unfair advantage, really.
It's ridiculous, and unfortunately, what it does is he makes him into a proper champion where he's almost expected. He steps up out on a court, and if he loses a set, then it's a shock. So it's almost inevitable that he's going to go on to win competitions, and he becomes boring, like your Federer did a couple of years back before he went on his dip, like your Pete Sampras's did, and in other sports like your Phil Taylor's, like your Michael Schumacher's in his prime, that people get bored of him, and it's a shame really, because like you said, he's got all the ingredients. It's not like he's just churning out boring wins. He's an exciting player. He plays exciting shots. He plays winners. He isn't just a wall who knocks it back and waits for his opponent to make mistakes. He's a real go-getter, and it's really difficult to look past him for this one, especially on the hard courts.
As a Brit, how are you feeling about Andy Murray's hopes? Obviously finishing last year and starting this year at number 2, which is great for him. What do you reckon? He's made the final at least once, if not twice, I believe, at the Australian Open before. I think losing both of them to Djokovic.
Yeah. If he can get to a final and then not meet Djokovic in a final, then I think he's got it wrapped. I mean, the draw always dictates that those two are on opposite sides of the draw, so he's never going to meet him in a quarter or a semi where he can catch him cold. He's always going to wait and wait and wait, and then it's, oh shit, I'm playing in the final against him. I've done this before 1,000 times, and I've lost 1,000 times. Yeah. It can't be easy for a bloke to go out there and expect to upset the odds, because it's happened so many times. Having said that, he's come off the back of a really, really good 2015, and I think what'll kick him on the most is that Davis Cup win, that historic Davis Cup win for the British team that we haven't seen for years and years and years and years, and you can see the bloke just revels in a team environment. You saw it during the Olympics when he won at the Olympics. The fact that he was playing for a team as opposed to himself. He seems to really beat himself up when he plays for himself, but he seems to put that to one side when he plays for a team. So if you can just... It's a difficult one in tennis, because we've both played at a very poor standard, and there's nothing. It's one of those such frustrating sports.
It looks so easy, doesn't it? It looks like you watch it on TV.
You make a mistake, and there's no one else to look around and blame. It's you and your rackets. You smash your racket up, and then you have to go home and get a new racket. Yeah. But there's just no one else to blame. Whereas if you're playing as part of a doubles team, then you've got someone to drag you on. So if he can just manage to harness that good feeling that he had from the Davis Cup team and bring it into this year, then hopefully he can have a good year. But as a sports personality, I really like him.
And he obviously won. The British Sports Personality of the Year?
Exactly, yeah.
And very well known for his outgoing personality, and
I think he gets a really hard
he's cardboard, mate. What are you talking about? He's
only cardboard because he can only talk in a certain way. If you've got that accent,
and he's got that whingy weasel face as well. You just want to punch really hard.
He's got an accent that just.
It's Scottish. He's very Scottish.
It's very difficult to sound exciting and interesting when you're Scottish. Just like
excuse me, Billy Connolly, phenomenal.
Aye, but you can't. It's not real Scottish. It's Billy.
Exactly. He sounds excitable.
That's because he puts on
is
this
excitable,
wild
yeah.
accent. I mean, it's very difficult to
topic,
sound
yeah.
to sound intelligent if you've got a Scouse accent or a Birmingham accent. Apologies to any of our Birmingham and Scouse listeners, but if you go into the interview, I would say that I've done really good work over the past couple of months, and I think I can bring a lot to your team. You're going to struggle against someone from Surrey who comes into an...
Oh, this is it. Here we go. Everyone, listen, you're in for a treat. We're going around the world in accents. Keep going, Gareth.
So, I mean, yeah, a little bit off topic, but come on, Andy Murray.
Yeah, well, as you said, if he holds on to that momentum, certainly he can utilise that feeling and continue to play some good tennis. You can't help but feel like they're leaving Rafa behind. He got smashed by Djokovic at the Qatar Open just recently, a few weeks ago. I think he said after the game that Djokovic is the most perfect tennis player he's ever seen. For someone who had such a long and distinguished rivalry with Roger, then that's a huge call to make.
Sad to see, isn't it? But the way that he played his tennis was always going to be that age would catch up with him.
So they've said that for years, haven't they? Yeah.
He relied on his clay game was outstanding because he put so much topspin on the ball. He had so much control over his opponents, pushing them back way beyond the baseline and making them hit from deep. I mean, you can only sustain that for a certain period of time. Slowly, unfortunately, your body gives up on you, and it's a very demanding game on clay, sliding about everywhere, on their ankles, on the knees,
hips as well.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so it's unfortunately the way that he played the game. It was only a matter of time until he wasn't able to sustain it at the top level. But that's not to say that he's not a top 4, top 5 player in the world.
What about Roger the Dodger?
We sort of forget about him, really, don't we? I mean,
which is phenomenal because he's 34.
Yeah,
he's 34 years old. He's number 3, number 4.
Yeah.
He's still coming, and he made 2 finals last year. I mean, this is.
And apparently he's past it. He's nothing.
He's past
now.
it and done. I mean, that's got to be testament to the bloke and the how good he is and was. The fact that he's almost discounted now as past it over the hill, and yet he's still making these finals.
Definitely. I mean, he's just class personified, isn't it? From the way that he walks out onto a court to the way that he handles himself off it and the strokes that he plays on it. And and that one-handed backhand as well, eh?
Just ask his wife.
Exactly. No, it's, he will make... You said he made 2 finals last year. I wouldn't be in the slightest bit surprised if he made another 2 this year and maybe even one
Was it 2? Oh, he made at least 1.
Yeah. But, no, it's...
Can he win another one, though? Can he add to his grand... I mean... certainly, you wouldn't discount him, but looking at Djokovic's form, looking at Andy Murray obviously getting better every year, and looking at some of these younger guys coming through, Kai Nishikori is certainly been playing some fantastic tennis. Stan Wawrinka won the Australian Open last year. I mean, there's more inroads into that sort of unbeatable top 4 that has been for so long.
Well, as I was talking about earlier, I mean, if he can get lucky with the draw and be on the... I know it sounds ridiculous, but if he can get lucky and be on the same side as Djokovic and find himself up against him in a quarter or a semi...
Well, he would be if he's third.
Yeah, exactly. So if he's third and Djokovic is still top, which is likely, then they'd meet in the semi. And I just think it's a bit easier to beat Djokovic in a semi-final than it is in a final because... He just goes up a notch.
Yeah.
He's a proper champion who lives for those massive, massive moments and knows how to win finals. Whereas if you can catch him a bit cold, especially on grass with Federer's pedigree at Wimbledon, maybe that's one to look out for. Maybe we'll call it here first. Well, I will anyway.
Chalk it in.
Fed for Wimbledon.
Okay. Well, finally for me, again I touched on it, but Leighton Hewitt, one of my all-time sporting heroes and phenomenal achievement. Leighton, I know you like to listen to every Dropout 22. Never misses an episode. So Leighton, that's fantastic. I'll certainly be watching every serve I can. So everyone I think should watch Leighton in his last one. I think his first one was 20 years ago or what have you. He was 15 years old. And some of the ball boys were older than him. and that's just special achievement.
I hate to admit it, but he is my favourite tennis player of all time.
Yes.
That backwards hat, that fucking come on, the whole works.
Tenacity,
Exactly.
Ferociousness,
Exactly.
desire to win.
I was in Wimbledon, unfortunately not for the final, but on a school trip. Were to watch him. When was that? That would have been way back. I think it was actually the year that he ended up going on and winning it.
2001.
In 2001 or 2, was it?
2002 maybe, yeah.
2002, and I sat at the very top in the shit seats at court number 1 for one of his early games, and I was on the old disposable cameras that my mum had given me to go down and take a couple of shots, and you get 32 shots on a disposable camera. I took them back. Mam took them to boots. 20 of them came back as Leighton Hewitt. Lovely. So, and you couldn't see him. You could just see some white hat backwards and
the other 11 were from the bathroom. So
yeah, exactly.
Also of Leighton Hewitt.
Yeah. We'll stay on the Aussie theme, and we'll go on to discuss what Patty wants to see from the Wallabies in 2016. Patty, I've been well impressed, as you know, with the way that Michael Check has turned things around in the last 12, 18 months or so. What do you want to see?
Not 18 months, 12 months.
12 months.
Yeah.
All right, fine. Well, 14.
14 now.
So, yeah, I mean, how do you want to see... I'm assuming that you want to see him...
I want him to maintain the rage. I want him to keep going and keep sort of playing at the level they have been, but also with that belief. I would also love to see the public and to see the fans continue to support them like they have. I mean, obviously, it's not like the support you get during a World Cup, but also rugby's been having a hard time of late in Australia, and having an international side that we can get behind really helps the sport. And look, I want to win a trophy. If not the rugby championship again, defending that would be fantastic. But cash it all in. I want a Bledisloe Cup. I want to beat New Zealand in New Zealand, and I want that Bledisloe Cup back.
There it is. Well, there's nothing better than watching the Wallabies in full flow, as long as they're not playing against you. So, I think from a rugby fan point of view, if we can just see the Aussies progress like they have been, playing behind a solid set piece as you seem to have now, you've always had the backs to light up the stage and beat anyone. So, really exciting team to watch, and hopefully Checker and his coaching staff can keep making strides.
Leighton, if you are listening, just have a word with them as well.
Maybe get him in as motivational coach.
Yeah. Do work for me.
So we missed Fantasy 15 last week because we rabbited on for hours on end. But this week it's back, and it's quite timely actually that the two boys that we are picking are going to be wearing 12 and 13, synonymous with each other, the centre partnerships. We sent the message out to our listeners, and plenty got in touch. Sandy Robertson and Steve Dunhill completely missed the point and just listed all the great centres that we've had when we asked for centre partnerships. Dan Martin has come back with Tana Umanga and Brian O'Driscoll. Rob Ward, maybe a little bit tongue-in-cheek, we reckon, has gone for Sam Burgess and Ayola Arinley. Andy Chapman has gone for Will Greenwood and Andy Chapman.
It's a phenomenal achievement for him, considering he plays second row or number 8.
Exactly. Paul Andrews has gone for a slightly different approach. He has gone the Sydney Aquatic Centre and the Melbourne Civic Centre, two great centres in their own rights. Thanks for that, Paul. Stephen Jones has gone Ryan Cross and Mark Gasnier, apologies. John Paul McGrain has gone Tim Horan and Brian O'Driscoll again, and he made a special mention for Sterling Mortlock. Gary Dipple, he's gone for Ma Nonu and Tim Horan. Tom Shepherd went for, as Dan Martin did, Tana Umanga and Brian O'Driscoll. And Fatty Roberts has gone for a co-Fatty in Scott Gibbs. Paddy, who do we reckon?
Well, big surprise for me. I'm certainly going to be picking Tim Horan. I think if you win 2 World Cups, that's got to count for something. But not just that. He was a phenomenal player, both defensively and offensively, and he was offensively good at what he did. And I certainly think that Tim Horan deserves that number 12 jersey. In 13, for me, I always loved watching him play, even though he played for the hated enemy in the New Zealand side. So Tana Umaga, I think, was just one of the all-time greats in terms of rugby. But we can certainly slot him in at 13, and that'll be my centre pairing.
When did he win his first World Cup?
Doesn't matter.
When did he win his first World Cup?
It doesn't matter.
When did he win his first World Cup?
He didn't win one.
Huh?
Was he part of the team in 2011?
2011.
Oh, you're talking about Tim Horan?
Yeah.
Oh, right. I thought you were having a dig at Tana.
No. I'll have a dig at
Yeah,
Tana.
I know you said 95. He won his first one in 91. He still was there in 99, so suck a dick.
So the professional game... The game went professionally in 95, so as we've mentioned all along, we are discounting any achievements up until the game went pro, because this is...
Okay, fine. What a shame. Only one World Cup to his name after that.
Only one World Cup.
And Bledisloe Cups and Tri-Nations.
I'm going to chuck another Aussie at you, similar dap. Matt Gitto. 102 caps, 698 points, 2 Super Rugby titles, 3 Heineken Cups on the bounce, and he's got a fucking law named after him.
He's pretty great, actually.
I mean, I
That's
know...
not a bad shot. That's actually not a bad... I mean, I love Giddo as well. And I read a scary stat. I'm sure I've said it before. If he wasn't dropped from the side and hadn't been injured, if he'd played every game that was available to him, he would have played close to, I think it was like 160, 170 international caps, which is pretty...
It is a scary stat.
Scary.
But the most capped... of the lot of them in the backs is Brian O'Driscoll, that we haven't even mentioned yet.
And we don't need to.
We absolutely need to. 133 caps, 49 tries, 8 Lions caps, 4 Celtic League titles, 3 Heineken Cups, 2 Six Nations, 1 Grand Slam, and 3 IRB Player of the Year shortlists.
How many World Cups did he win?
He didn't win any because Ireland are not very good. But he is, for me, the best back of our generation. He absolutely had it all. He came up as a live wire, a really quick centre with not that many skills. He was just raw. He was quick. He had great feet,
great hair as well.
He had great long blonde highlighted hair and wore gloves. But then, as his game developed, he was as good a player as he was in his last game as he was in the first.
Well, as good, but he certainly developed himself. You're right.
He completely changed the way he played. He redefined himself as a player, a bit like David Bowie. He just reinvented himself over and over and over again.
I would have said more like Ryan Giggs.
Fair enough. But to go from a live wire and just a pace man. I mean, that try he scored against the Aussies in 2001, that in the first Lions test, just absolutely ripped through you boys and set the scene for that losing series.
I was going to say, how'd they go that year?
And then to go from that to developing into a bloke who can read a defensive play, in a defensive line, can read anything.
To be fair, and you mentioned that 2001, I was a big fan of his from that moment on, and particularly I was very excited to see him in the 2003 World Cup when we had it, we were hosting it in Australia. So I think that's fair. I overlooked him because he doesn't have that sort of aura or presence as your Tano Umagas. Or your Nonus, as I mentioned, maybe it's because he's half their size, but he's a bit like your Roger Federers. You almost forget about him because he'd been part of the scenery.
So, as you mentioned, Nonu there as well, 103 caps, 35 tries, and 2 World Cups on the bounce.
Look, piss him off. He has done nothing in club level. He's been useless in club level.
It's true. I was having a look at his stats earlier, and
he bounced around a few clubs. He's not done anything, and look how shit he's been for Toulon as well.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think there's definitely we've got so many great centres here, we have to nitpick and find players who have done it both at club and for country, and for that reason, probably Manonu does have to be cast aside.
Okay then, and then I guess since a lot of their career and their highlights would have been pre-95 for Tim Horan, so begrudgingly we can discount him.
So you're looking at, to fill 2 shirts, Matt Gitto, Brian O'Driscoll, and Tanner Umaga.
Yeah. Well, we'll just pick all 3 then.
Personally, I'd go Gitto 12, O'Driscoll 13.
That's not a bad shout. I do like that, and to be fair, I can't really argue with Brian O'Driscoll being in there. Gitto, Umaga, toss of the coin. I'm Australian, I'm going to go with Gitto as well.
Cool. The only, yes, it's a little bit lightweight maybe, but we got Jonah on the wing, so it doesn't matter. And we may have a little bit of an option, bit of trouble because we got Dan Carter at 10. Do we want two left-footed kickers in the back line? Answer is yes, we do, because they always look a lot prettier than right-footers, and that's coming from a right-footer. That is it for this week. Thank you at home for listening. Patty, thanks for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Gareth. Thank you very much. Just a quick shout out, if I will, to my auntie Bisty, who listens apparently all the way in Queensland in Australia. I don't know how knowledgeable she is in terms of rugby, but lovely to know that you're listening, Auntie Bisty, so hello to you.
Absolutely. This has been Dropout 22, a GD Media production.
That pisses me